Hi everyone, it's Lisa Marie from Artistry by Lisa Marie, and today I am coloring this bunny coloring page. Drew this adorable bunny a couple days ago. Thought it'd be really fun to color it in. Right now all I'm doing is quickly pulling out some of the colors that I want to start with. I thought about my palette last night, so I'm just trying to remember what I thought about, which it's always a problem right there. One fun thing I thought I would do is choose one color to try and incorporate into all of the elements of the drawing. And I decided Mulberry, which is this color right here, would be super fun to just include in every element of the drawing. So I'm gonna start with all the berries because that's the easiest part for me mentally to have mulberry. So I have a dark, medium, and light for the grayscale, and then an extreme dark and white for extreme light. I'll be writing down all of the colors as well, so you don't have to try and memorize them. But this is the mulberry, so again, this is the color. I thought it would be kind of fun to just sort of try and visually unify the entire drawing by putting it in every part. Also, it's kind of a challenge too, if you think about it. Don't, always just pick one color and say, yes, that's going to be in every single part of what I'm working on. You don't really think of mulberry. I mean, it's a beautiful color, but you don't really think of it as an option in, green leaves or, a brown rabbit or a brown branch. So I thought that could be kind of just sort of a fun little challenge today. But the berries are easy. The berries are a very easy way to start using this mulberry color. And also, mulberry isn't really a color I use that often. I don't know about you, but I tend to gravitate to certain colors. I just am drawn to certain colors. Usually earth tones. I love earth tones. Probably because I draw so many animals, and earth tones just naturally work with that. And mulberry doesn't show up too often in the natural color palette of most animals. So what I'm doing right now is just starting with the mulberry, like getting it right on in there, and wherever there's that darker bit of shadowing, I'm getting my mulberry there because this is the darker color. I thought it would look great as the darker color in the grayscale. And again, like I always say, grayscale, easy as 1, 2, 3, dark, medium, light. Right now I'm just starting with my dark. And I don't go too dark too fast, so go a little bit slower at first when I'm just starting, getting a bit of this. I can always go back and darken it later, but there you go. Just a touch of the dark. I'm gonna go back with some of my medium, which again, I'll write down all of the colors in the video description. Oh yeah, look at that. Ooh. That's gonna pop off the page. That's one thing I like about grayscale drawings. You add the color, to the grayscale coloring page, and it just sort of brings them to life. And then they kind of look like they're, popping right off the page once you add color to them. I always liked that effect. It's probably why I always draw grayscale coloring pages. So right now I'm just doing my medium tone, and what I'm doing is I'm going right over that dark mulberry. So this red is blending with the mulberry on the paper, and I'm pushing it a little bit further out, so this medium tone is acting a bit like a bridge, connecting the darker areas of the berry to the lighter areas of the berry. And I'm trying to focus on just one element in the drawing at a time. So right now I'm just doing the berries. I'm not going to jump around all over to other areas of the drawing. And when I do this, I still try to be, you know, aware of where my light is coming from. The light's coming from this direction, so my shadows are going to be on the opposite side that the light is coming from. Unless sometimes you'll see in some of the little nooks and crannies, you know, I'll draw like a shadow as if the berries in front are casting a shadow on a berry behind them. Or if a leaf right here is casting a bit of a shadow on a berry. Little things like that can really, again, help bring the drawing to life. Make the lighting seem consistent. All that good stuff. I try to plan a little bit anyway, the palette the day before, or sometimes the night before I do one of these videos. And I planned out these berries, and I'm a little worried that they're going to be too bright. But then on the other hand, I'm kind of excited to see, you know, how bright they'll be. So this is the lighter color. Because I think it could be kind of fun having a pop of bright. So the lighter color now, it's just going right over all the others. It's blending with the other colors I already have on the paper. And that's something, you know, I think you get more with practice. You have the color straight from the pencil. You put that on the paper and that's the color it is. But as soon as you start layering colors, you know, you start to see and learn how, you know, it can be so much more once you start blending it with other colors. And just sticking to that, you know, rule of, you know, 1, 2, 3, dark, medium, light with grayscale, it also can help it go fairly quickly. When you're starting to build up, you know, that sort of a three-dimensional look. And then you can always, again, like I always do, you can always go back, add some darker shades of color, add some lighter shades of color. But I always enjoy the simplicity of just starting with 3 core colors. That is working pretty well. Usually I also do a lot of stuff with background, fiddling with background, playing with background. This is a kind of a busy composition that I drew. A lot of stuff going on. So I might not do too much with the background. You can tell I'm thinking as I go here. I'm making it up as I go. But when I have a really busy composition, you know, a lot going on. Sometimes I prefer a simple background or even no background color, really, just because there's so much to look at and take in already. And it's okay to just sort of let a drawing stand on its own sometimes without any, you know, backup support. You know, the background is, you know, it's the backup singer basically. It's there to help enhance the primary image. And if there's a lot going on up front, you know, a busy background or, you know, too much behind it can just kind of make a garbled mess, I've learned. Okay, so there's my dark medium light. I'm gonna go back with the mulberry, and I'm just gonna push that shadow a bit more. Like I said, I didn't go too dark too fast. Didn't press down too much too soon. So that way I didn't fill in all the tooth of the paper, so I can keep going back. And I love printable coloring pages. I print my coloring pages all the time. Sometimes I use just really light, you know, standard paper. Done it. This, since I want to, I know I want to, you know, layer a bit more, I used a little bit heavier cardstock paper, and I'll have the link to that in the video description for you also, so you don't have to guess what type of paper I use. And I like having a little bit of a heavier paper just so I can, you know, take advantage of a little bit of that extra paper tooth or texture. It grips the pigment of the pencil. And it lets me have just a little bit more fun layering. I also have a much darker color set aside just so I can really push my shadows in a moment. But first, I just want to make sure I get that grayscale developed just right. I want to have a little bit of a cast shadow right here. Look at that. The leaf's going to cast a little bit of a shadow right there. Okay. So I'll go back and I push everything, you know, a little bit more. Way back when I first started, you know, doing art and coloring and drawing. This was a long time ago. I was always afraid to push my shadows too much. I was always worried, you know, I always thought, oh, I've got it. I did a good job. I don't want to push and ruin it. But you know, then I learned that's actually part of being brave as an artist, is pushing yourself, pushing the medium that you're using, whether it's pencils or pastels or paint or markers. A little bit more. There's. And it's a cycle, so now I'm going back to that medium tone again, and I'm just gonna gently get that in there a bit more. So again, this is just a nice layering. You don't have to do all the layers. If you just like the look with just one layer, that's perfect. That's great for you. Do what you want to do with, you know, your coloring page. It's your work of art. It's your creation. Just taking that medium middle tone, building up the, I guess you could say I'm building up the shape, basically. The volume of the berries a little bit more. Speaking of paint, if you're looking at my nails at all, you're gonna see probably some white specks on them. That was from me painting last night. So if anyone goes, what are those white dots? That's paint. I'm an artist. My nails and hands are very rarely perfectly clean. The studio leaves its mark. No shame. All right. Again, going back with that lighter color. Just gonna blend it again. But now you can see, because I've layered the colors a few times, you know, it's a nice rich build-up of these different colors. They're blending together still, so you have these nice hues sort of working together. These are some bright berries. Usually when I draw berries for the holidays, if you've looked at any of my other holiday, you know, coloring videos that I've done a few now, and if I color berries, I usually like red. You know, I go for red. It's one of my favorite colors. But again, trying to push myself a bit and, you know, resist my natural urges for the colors that I gravitate towards. Going for something a little bit different. Another reason why I went with that mulberry. I was thinking last night, what colors do I very rarely use? And sort of mentally going through my pencils and colors. And I realized mulberry. Mulberry is often the odd man out here. So, I pulled mulberry into the game. Okay, so now we have the grayscale definitely built up. Gonna take this darker color, and this is where I push a bit, pushing my shadows. And it doesn't take much to push these, just a little bit. So some of the berries are in front of others, which would be where I get those cast shadows. The one right in front, I'm just doing a nice grayscale from dark, medium to light. And I don't know if you can tell from the video. It's always hard for me to know how well you can see what I'm doing. But I leave some little bit of light on the other side of these berries. I don't push the darkness all the way to the edges. That's a reflective light. If you look at lighting, if you look at something that's in lighting, darkness doesn't always go to the edge. And sometimes there's a little bit of a reflective light on the other side that you would logically think is the darkest shadow area. And leaving that little tiny streak of light, like right here, you can see there's a little bit of a lighter streak, so I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. It helps it look a little bit more real. And when I have these cast shadows on the other side of it, right there, it really helps the berry in front stand out. Do it again here. And then there's that cast shadow. So this front berry is casting a shadow over the berry behind it. This poor little guy's all the way in the back, so he's going to have a lot of shadow over him. And I mean, these are small, so I don't need to do a bunch of color. You know, just a quick line of dark, you know, and a touch of blending, and that's it. Using Prismacolor pencils today. Sometimes I like mixed media, you know, I mix it all up. But today I thought, since I'm already challenging myself with the mulberry, maybe I'll just stick with straight color pencil for the whole thing. Although, you know, I say that, and then in the end I'm going to totally bring something else into play. My coloring, probably. Because I can't resist. It's coloring. It's all about having fun, right? Okay, so we have pushed our darker shadows. Now I'm going to take the white, and right in the brighter part of each berry, I'm just going to do a little bit of, what would you call it, white enhancement, light enhancement. I'm not going to put it where the reflective light is. I'm going for the lightest parts of the berry for the white highlight. And it's going to blend naturally with, you know, the color's already there. but it'll really help make the super lighter side of the berries kind of pop out a bit. And that's pretty fast too. I mean, you've done all the work building up everything else. Should be pretty fast. Okay, so we have our first element of the drawing with mulberry in it. So I'm going to put these back. Now, let's see. I'm probably going to have to resharpen you. Years. I'm going to have to resharpen that. I'm totally going to be using that white again. Being proactive. Okay, so next let's do the leaves. And again, I want my mulberry because that's going to be in every element of the drawing. Let me see. I'm going to want... Totally thought through this last night. I swear I did. Dark green. I'm going to want my lime green. And chartreuse, which, by the way, I thought about last night. I don't really know how to spell it off the top of my head. I figured that out last night. And then white I'm going to want to. So, you know when you think about words and you know the word and you know the color. Last night I was thinking about everything and I'm like, how do you spell chartreuse? These are the things I think about after my kids go to bed. Okay, so gonna take, again, the mulberry. It's the primary color I'm using throughout everything. So I'm actually gonna use it this time to really darken and enhance the green leaves, which you don't really think, again, of a purple pink and a green leaf, but just a small amount in the darkest shadow areas. That's going to blend with the dark green that I'm going to be putting in the dark shadowy areas. So it's really going to blend with the dark green, and it'll push the dark green. And I didn't resharpen my mulberry for a reason. I want that softer, I don't know if you can tell, the tip of the pencil is a bit softer now. It's not freshly sharpened. It's not going to make crisp lines. It's going to make very soft, gentle lines, which will blend more easily with the color that I put over it, which in this case is going to be dark green. So just going down to the darkest parts of every leaf. A bit of a shadow from the twig there. And since this is the under layer, or I guess you could say the underpainting of color, the mulberry, I mean, it's not going to stand out the way it does on the berries, but I'm still using it. I'm still incorporating it in the color scheme. Shadow. I'm still using it to enhance the other colors. In this case, it'll be the, again, dark green shadow. And I'm using it like right now to help me block out my shadows. Which is another way, when you block out your shadows, it's another way of sort of reinforcing, you know, lighting. It's a nice visual reminder. of where your light's coming from, where your shadows should be, all that good stuff. Shadow. Very soft with that there. So now got my dark green, and I'm just gonna go right over the mulberry. Again, I don't go too dark too fast, but it's blending fairly nicely with that mulberry. Totally thought through this last night. You know, the things you think about. I'm sitting there thinking, will green blend with mulberry? And then I figured, yeah, if you make the pencil tip soft, so it's a gentle shading sort of experience, it'll blend. I had faith. Yep. And it is making that green, you know, very rich by adding that other element of color to it. Just going around adding a bit more shading on another side of those leaves. So the light's coming from this direction. Want to add a bit more shading on that side of the leaves. And again, I mean, other than the mulberry, you know, experiment that we're doing here, dark, medium, light. Dark, medium, light. Those are the colors that I'm playing with first while I do the grayscale. Add a bit more shadow on this side of that leaf. So when I blended the mulberry with those pinks in the berries, you know, it looks totally different than it does now that it's blending with a green. And I love that. I love how blending and playing with color can just really change the nature of a color from what you see on a pencil. What you see on a pencil, I think, is, and it's just a starting point. It's where a color begins. And it's how you blend it and use it. You know, that's the real adventure with a color. Let's see what we're going to do here. Light's coming from this direction, so the shadows would be down here. And because I'm using, you know, the different colors with the mulberry, you know, at first there might be a bit of a concern, oh, it's just going to be a monochromatic work of art, which, by the way, is awesome. I love monochromatic works of art. I think they are so cool. But that's not what I want here. But by mixing, you know, that one color with so many others, you know, it's not monochromatic at all. You know, the different elements of the drawing don't blend together. They still stand out from each other. Although doing it as a monochromatic one, oh, that'd be so cool. That'd be a fun thing to do too. I'm making mental notes for my next projects. Monochromatic is when you use just one color or the same type of color throughout a drawing, for anyone who doesn't know. So say I chose pink or red. It would just be all shades of pink and red in here. No greens, no browns, nothing else. And that would be fun. Next time. If you hear snoring in the background of this video, that is my cat, who has fallen asleep right next to my desk in the studio and is now snoring. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what anyone else is doing. He is tired and he is taking his nap. So this leaf is over this leaf, so it's going to be a bit more of a shadow right there. And twig is over this leaf, so going to be a bit more shadow there. This pencil in the way. Can you see what I'm doing? I get so focused on coloring. You know, sometimes I forget there's a camera, you know, right there. I'm really not used to working in the studio with a camera. It's a new thing for me. So sometimes I just sort of forget, you know, about camera angles and all that good stuff. I sit down, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start working. Just getting all these elements in. Oh, that green really does go dark when it blends with the mulberry. Look at that. Impressed. Thank you, mulberry. It's a little bit slower, I think, when coloring in these leaves, just because they have all these intricate angles. You know, the tips are a bit sharper. Berries are easier for me, just a quick whoosh. With these leaves, you gotta, you know, really get into all the angles that we have going on. fun to draw, but a little time consuming when you're trying to color it in. But I think that's where coloring becomes almost a meditative experience. You know, all those little nooks and crannies, you get so focused on just working on the drawing. You know, that's where that whole mindfulness element can come in, where you focus on just one thing and that's it. So you focus on just drawing and you forget about everything else. You know, you forget about whatever's stressing you out. If you have anxiety, it can help you relax. Just because it takes your mind to a place where you have to focus on this one task. And that's something else I really like about coloring. And then you have a nice work of art at the end too. That's cool too. It's productive meditation. It's productive mindfulness. You get something at the end. Okay, so what are you doing there? Go there. That was a dark. Now we're going to take the medium. And we do have the mulberry in play, but it blended with that dark green. So I'm basically now going to just pretend the mulberry isn't there. And I'm going to take this medium tone green. It's a little bit lighter, again, than what I usually would do. But I thought with the brighter, lighter berries, some brighter, lighter leaves might be fun. It's a bit more of an extreme transition from the dark to the medium tone, medium color. But again, I thought it would be kind of fun. And by the way, it can totally backfire on me when I'm coloring and, I plan a palette ahead of time, the night before, and then I jump on in and go, yeah, this is going to be so fun, it's going to look great, and then I blend my colors together and I go, no, that didn't work at all. Done it. But I think this is working. I keep pausing to look at it. Just make sure it's working. But I think it's working. And I'm not going too dark too fast. Again, like before with the berries. I'm giving myself a little wiggle room by leaving some paper tooth. So I can go back and add more layers. Build things up a little slowly. Blend the colors a little slowly. A lot of going, slowly with, don't go too dark too fast, build up your colors slowly. It's more about us doing a self-kindness. I'm giving myself time to see how this is playing out, see how the colors are working together. And again, that goes back to the whole, coloring for meditation, coloring for mindfulness. I think it's all about being kind to yourself when you color. You're doing it for yourself quite frequently. For your own mental health, for your own, edification, learning how to color, learning how to draw. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's, you know, what it should quite frequently be about. Doing something just for you. Yeah, that mid-tone is jumping a bit from that dark green to that much lighter green, but it's working. And I still have to blend my lighter green over that, so we'll see how this goes. I do the drawings and the like these videos this way, you know, where you kind of see me experimenting a bit. Just because I like to show kind of the thought process that goes behind it and how, you know, it's okay to experiment and it's okay to try and it's okay to fail. Maybe it won't work. You don't know until you try. So it kind of gives you a bit of a insight in just in my studio, just, you know, how I do this. I've been drawing for years, guys, like over a decade I've been drawing. You know, studied under another professional artist when I was younger, traveled, studied master artists, and, you know, the one thing I learned is you have to keep trying new things. You have to keep pushing yourself. I don't think I put a dark green there. And then you have to keep reminding yourself that you got to get all the leaves. There we go. I'm really making this medium toned green work. Gonna have to resharpen it in a minute. I'm also loving how, you know, the red and green are opposite colors on the color wheel. So the red and the green, they're playing so nicely here, helping each other, you know, stand on their own and pop off the page a bit. Good complement of colors. That's something else I visualize in my head sometimes when I'm planning a palette. You know, I think about the colors of the pencils themselves, but also sometimes I think about the color wheel. And I think about what colors on one side of the color wheel, you know, what's on the other side. What else is going to play with that? I think I have a leaf here, whoops, that I missed. If it isn't a leaf, it is one now. Sometimes when I'm drawing, you know, like leaves or something, you know, I just get into, again, that sort of meditative drawing mode. And I'm just drawing the same shapes, or basically, you know, same looking shapes over and over again. And that's when all of a sudden you'll see I'll have like a ton of leaves suddenly on a drawing or a coloring page. Or a ton of berries. That was me zoning out. Just repeating the same shape over and over. We're getting there. I am using this medium tone quite a bit though. I'm wondering how much further I can take it before I'm gonna have to give in and sharpen. But the blunt edge of the color, I mean, it's giving me these nice soft layer of color. And I'm really enjoying it, so I don't want to sharpen it. But there's a point where you can't go any further. You have to. I am going to have to sharpen it before the next round of coloring, though, here. I will acknowledge that. In a busy area, like this part of the drawing, I'll often pause for a moment, just get my bearings. Make sure I know where I'm going with the colors. One more. Hey, and I didn't have to resharpen it this round. Woohoo! Okay. Medium, now light. And this is going right over the whole leaf. Again, blending everything together. All the colors are playing together. Stopping as I go just to make sure that this is kind of working here. It is a bit of a dramatic jump. Usually when I do grayscale, I, do a much more subtle transition between dark and light. But this is kind of fun. And that mulberry is definitely present in these green leaves. You can see it in the shadow that I've built up with that dark green. And it's definitely there, and it's, you can still tell it's a color that's being also used in the berries. But by blending it with the dark green, using it in the shadowy areas of the leaves, it's really helping to enhance the shape of the leaves. You can definitely tell where the shadow line is, that darker shadow line. working. Giving myself a mental pat on the back. For mixing a purple pink into my green leaves. It's the little things. And I will go back and push my colors again. I'll push the shadows a little bit more. It's usually faster the second time around because, I already have colors there. I already have the foundation for the leaves laid out. This lighter color is doing a pretty good job of blending the others together, but I still want to go back and, just see how far I can push this whole thing. Build it up nicely if I can. Had to pause and make sure I was coloring a leaf. Sometimes when I'm coloring, and my art tutor often caught me and yelled at me about this, I'll be coloring one or working on one part of a drawing, but then my eyes might skip ahead, and they'll go to another part of the drawing. And, with my hand, I'll be coloring one thing, but my eyes will be like over there looking at that, trying to, work out lighting and all that good stuff. She often caught me doing that. And that's how mistakes happen. Not like just experimenting mistakes, but actual, like, oh, I just colored all the way over there. And that is when you're not being mindful or present for any coloring meditative purposes. I'm not focusing on just the one task at hand. My brain is starting to wander off to another element of the drawing. And I usually don't like the result then. Again, it's all those nooks and crannies that'll really slow you down if you're trying to time yourself coloring. I know someone who does that. They try to color a whole coloring page as quickly as possible. Like that's their challenge. That's the fun part to them. It's kind of interesting. I can't do it because I go slow and do so many layers of color, but I think all the different, styles and approaches to coloring are very, very interesting. And it's how you make it your own that way too. Coming up with your own coloring style you know, your own unique mentality about coloring. We're almost there. This pencil's getting worn out too. But it's doing a great job making my leaves pop off the page. I like it. It's blending really nicely with that middle tone green, that mid-tone green, medium green, whatever you want to call it, that I used a moment ago. Definitely a dramatic transition from my super dark to the lighter. But visually, you know, it's working. But I am gonna have to do another layer here. I think, to make them all play a little more nicely together. Thank you. So, almost done. I'm not going to add another layer of the mulberry. I already have that as my underpainting. It's very visible in the leaves already. I used it. But I think I am gonna have to go back a bit with that dark green and add a smidge more to build that up nicely. Totally gonna have to resharpen, I think. Not much. I'm not gonna do too much sharpening there. So just a little bit more to really make the edges pop a bit, which is why I resharpened it, so I can get those edges. get my darker shadow in the base of the leaf. This is the base right here. The base of the leaf. Make sure that's a nice rich dark green blending with the mulberry. And if I press a little bit later, you see how I can just pull it out a little bit? So again, nice dark rich green blending with the mulberry. Making sure my edges are dark and blending. There we go. Also, this is where I'll go back and, you know, this leaf is in front of this leaf, so I'm just going to make sure that the shading helps this leaf stand out a bit more from the one in front of it. So not just layering colors, but also just making sure the layered elements of the drawing are playing nicely together. Who knew dark green and mulberry would blend so nice though? Look at that. There we go. And because we already have the foundation of the dark medium light, you know, this is going quite a bit faster because this is just pushing what I already have in play in the drawing, in the coloring. Really want that base shadow to be a nice rich dark color. Go. Ooh, that was a good line of shadow. Just blending this out a bit. So I made that sharp line and now I'm gently lifting my pencil up and pulling the dark green into that leaf a little bit more. Just checking. Dark rich base. And blending it out. Especially with those berries over it, you know, some of these leaves I really want to make sure that the berries are casting a nice dark shadow too, over the leaves. And that goes back to making sure that, you know, every element of the drawing, you know, is playing nicely with all the other elements. The berries are in front of the leaves, so the berries should be leaving a bit of a shadow on the leaves. And that's where it helps to keep in mind, you know, where is your light source coming from? Where should the shadows be? It's another reason why it's good to, you know, not go too dark too fast. Especially the busier, you know, the composition, I think it's important sometimes to just go a little bit slower. Make sure you don't just, you know, ramming speed, full speed ahead. That's when you go back and go, huh, or look back and go, that wasn't exactly what I was going for. Getting that edge. And my mole stick is doing a fantastic job so far of keeping my hand from dragging through everything. Thank you, mole stick. Move it a bit. I'm obviously left-handed person, so I'm used to, at the end of the day, having my hand just, you know, covered in mess from writing and drawing all day. But, you know, it's such a simple setup, but having my mole stick, I mean, it's such a great tool. Keeps my hand elevated a bit so I don't smear everything. It also helps keep my hand a little bit steadier when I'm drawing, which is really useful because I spend a lot of time, you know, in the studio, drawing and coloring and all that good stuff. So, you know, there are days when my arm gets tired. And the mole stick just is so helpful to me. Sometimes the simple tools are the best tools. And mole sticks have been around forever, by the way. A little art history fun fact there. They're not my invention. They've been around for ages. Lots of professional artists have used them You know, it's not a high-tech thing. It's a low-tech tool that many people have used while working in their studios. And it's just so clever. You have a stick, bit of cloth at the end. I put foam in this one, but there's some people just do a bunch of cloth over and over wrapped around each other. Whatever elevates a little bit, one end is all you need. I actually have a few here in the studio. Years ago, I only had one mole stick in the studio, and that did not go well. Because, of course, I accidentally broke it. And then I had no mole stick in the studio. And I was very distraught. Do you ever do that? You have that one, even if it's a simple thing, that one thing that you use all the time, or you rely on all the time, but you only have one, and no backups, and then that one tool breaks, and that's it. You know, your mojo's off for just the rest of the day. That's what happened. So that's why now there's numerous in the studio. So you can definitely see, I think, or hope you can see on this video, how going back again, you know, the dark green is blending with the mulberry. But I'm also going back with that one layer of dark green to just sort of enhance what I have going on. With the shading, you know, the buildup of color. Building the shape of the leaves in terms of making it look a bit more three-dimensional, giving it that sense of volume. Especially if I'm going to have a, you know, a very simple, probably even just white background, something like that. I really want to make sure that everything else is really going to stand out in the drawing itself. pulling my dark a little bit more into this leaf. Here we go. Whee! That's a nice dark line right there. And this ribbon is over the leaf, so even though I haven't colored it yet, I'm gonna make sure that I have that shadow. It's all these nooks and crannies in these leaves. Why did I draw so many leaves? There we go. All right. And that middle tone, it needs to get re-sharpened. Can you guys hear me sharpen when I do it in a video? I have no idea. I should rewatch and find out. Okay, so again, layer of color, but now I already have that dark green line. So the final touch of coloring that I'm doing, you know, this round, it's the middle tone blending with that darker tone I just added. Gonna go a bit faster. The darker tone was what really had to get pushed, I think, a little bit more. Now I'm just doing a smidge more blending to make sure that the transition of colors from dark, medium to light is smooth. But it was really that touch of dark I really had to get in there a bit more. So this is just doing some blending work. Helping that darker green transition to the rest of the leaf. And I moved my pencil in a very specific direction when I was applying the green. So now I'm actually applying this middle tone, the darker green, I mean. So now I'm applying this middle tone green in a different direction when I'm blending it. And that's going to help smooth out the dark green even more by just applying the color of this next layer in a different direction. I guess in a way you could say it's smudging it, it's blending it that way. Oh, or you could say it's a variation of cross-hatching. So the green was applied this way, the dark green. So now I'm just going to make a point of taking my middle tone and applying it this way a little bit more, and that's going to help blend that dark green into the rest of the leaf. So dark green, pulling it in with my mid-tone pencil. I can do little circle movements to soften it a bit. But whatever softens that shading line, that dark green shadow line, I'm gonna do, because again, it's a very drastic transition from that dark green to that medium tone green. Mole stick, come with me. Okay. And that's something else, you know, people don't always talk about how, you know, there's colors, there's color theory, there's color palettes, but also just how you apply the color, for a color pencil, say, on the paper. It makes such a drastic difference in how the colors blend together and how the final look of the colors can appear on the paper. Are all the colors applied in the same direction? Are they applied in opposite directions? I don't always hear people talk about that. You know, actual movement of the hand applying the color. That really comes into play, by the way, when I draw fur, because then I make a point of applying color with the movement of the fur, with the pencil lines of the fur to maintain that fur texture. So here in the leaves, I'm trying to blend my lines. But when I'm coloring fur, you know, I like to let the lines kind of stand out a bit to maintain the texture in the drawing. Also fur, you know, a little bit more rough. The leaves are smooth. I'm going for smooth here. almost there. And I'm gonna check, of course, I'll look, but I don't think I need that lighter green tone that I used. I think I have enough of that in play. I think what I really need to do is push some of my highlights with a white pencil in a moment. So that's probably what I'm gonna do next. But I will pause and look before I make a decision. Let's just finish blending this last touch of dark green. Yeah. Okay. Let's just pause. I think I can go straight to this. So what I'm going to do here, just like with the berries, I'm going with whatever is the lighter part of the leaf. And it's just going to be a quick touch of white. In the lighter areas of the leaves. I can enunciate. A little bit more volume. And it doesn't look white on the paper because it's blending with all the colors under it, which is good. That's what it's supposed to do. Still have to be a little bit aware of my light source. I mean, I already have it pretty much built up because of the shadow work that I've been doing, but it's still good to just kind of make a mental note of where the light is coming from when I'm adding highlights. So here, 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 here. And because I'm going for some crisp highlights, I might have to resharpen this white pencil because for a crisp line, crisp highlight, any of that good stuff, you usually need a sharper pencil tip. It's difficult to get crisp anything with a softer or more blunt pencil tip. So I might have to resharpen here. Yeah, with a rich dark shadow like the one I have here with the dark green mixing with the mulberry. I want to complement that with a nice highlight. They work together, lights and shadows. So this leaf is over this leaf. I'm just going to have a little bit more of a white there to have it pop a bit. I want to smooth that out. That leaf over that one. How are you going? This way. And it is a smidge faster. Again, I've got all these other layers already down on the leaves. I have all the shadows built up, I've got all the volume built up, so just adding that extra little touch of white highlight, it doesn't take that long. But it's those little extra touches that can really help, you know, the drawing come to life and visually be a lot more interesting and fun. Just gonna go back there, get that going. A few more touches, see if I missed any, because I always miss something. That's what I do. I said I was going to stick to color pencils, and I lied. So I'm actually going to take my paint marker. And again, you already have that foundation. You have nice 3D look going on. You don't have to do this, but I like to add sometimes a little bit more shine. So just a couple reflective spots on the berries, and not all of them, like that one in the back doesn't really need it, but the ones that are really in the light, adding a couple white dots. It can really enhance that sense of volume. And they're shiny, so, you know, shiny things also often have that little bit of extra whiteness going on in the lighting. And the ones further back I'm not going to do because, you know, they're further back. They're not in direct light. Again, it's not a dramatic effect. I'm not doing that one in the back, just not in direct lighting. It's a small touch, but it can help to enhance what you got going on. All right, so I can put these away. Got that done, got that done. I think I'm gonna have to resharpen this. I want a crisp mulberry. Let me see here. You're already sharpened. Nice, thank you. You're already sharpened. What else do I want? You. And you. I wonder if I could just use you up. Okay, so I'm looking at the branches right now, which are all around. And I'm just sort of trying to remember the colors that I had planned. So it was starting with, dark, medium. These two are kind of my medium, so medium light. And then super light. I've got the cream. But again, I want my mulberry in the whole thing. So real quick, I'm just going to go around. And put the mulberry on the side of the branches where the darker shadow would be. So the same as what I did with the leaves. Oh look, I missed part of a leaf. That's the thing. You think you're done, you double check your work, and you still miss something. Okay. So I'm just doing just like what I did with the leaves. Blocking out my shadow a bit. And with a circle, it's really good to, again, notice where your light source is coming from. So you know where your shadows should be. I drew these extra lines in the wreath so you could have some fun with texture. I couldn't just draw a smooth circle. It just wasn't working for me. There we go. And hopefully the colors I planned for this branch work with mulberry. I see light coming from this direction, so my shadow would be a bit more over there. And then light coming from over here, so the shadow would be over here. Yeah, and then connect. Look at that. All right, so we have mulberry down, as the base. So now I'm going to blend, and that's a nice sharp edge I got there. Yay! Just going to mix it right on the paper with the mulberry. This is a very narrow sort of branch that I made. So, I mean, the color, as I'm putting it down, it's basically just a line of color. If I do too much, it's just going to go through the entire branch, and then I'll lose that three-dimensional look that I'm hopefully going to get. I always say hopefully or possibly because you never know. When you're drawing, when you're coloring, you can be going for one effect and then you can plan something out in your mind a certain way, which is what I do. I pre-color in my mind, and then in practice things don't always go the way I've mentally drawn it or colored it. But so far, this particular shade of, it's actually a shade of gray, is blending pretty nicely with this mulberry, like I had hoped it would. That's the other challenge for me. I've, I chose one color, but then I had to figure out how many other colors, would blend or work with that one base color that I had decided on, which was mulberry. So for me, this was kind of a fun, just sort of mental challenge last night, or mental practice, of mentally blending colors together. Okay, so that's the dark. This is the medium. And just gonna go right over those other two colors that I already have. Again, this is a narrow space that I'm doing this in with this branch. Colors don't have a choice. They have to overlap. Which means I don't have a choice but to make sure they blend well together. And small, tight areas like this, of course, have to make sure the pencil is nice and sharp. There we go. it's blending pretty well. So we have a mulberry, we have that warm gray, and now this is kind of an earth tone orange. But mix that with, where are you going? This lighter color. And now that blended over those two others. Now this is going to go right to the lighter areas where I still left white of the paper. And it's going to blend with that orange as well. So dark, medium, light. To start off, the grayscale. And I'm just want to see how these are going to play together on paper or in practice. In my mind, it totally worked. While having that mulberry underneath as the underpainting, the under layer of color. And you'd think that under layer of color, it's not too, you know, it doesn't matter too much. It's not too important. But it has a very strong effect sometimes on all the other colors over it or next to it. So there's that. Now, again, it's very thin, so it goes pretty quickly. I'm gonna take my cream. I have this long one, but I've got one here that's like super short. I need to use it up, so I'm just gonna use it. I go through so many pencils in my studio. And this is the light. Instead of white, I'm using this light cream color right now. And I'm just doing basically a line of light coloring here. And that way a bit, go this way a bit. So it's three-dimensional, but I mean, it's very narrow. So again, when you have limited space, you have to be a little bit more precise in color application. Because there's only so much room. Oh look, my pencils are invading my space. Here we go. That's working. And instead of the white, you know, I'm going for this cream color because it's softer, you know, it's not as stark as the white. And I was hoping, you know, with these other colors that I have going on, the cream would blend nicely. Which it seems to. Okay. I'm gonna take that mulberry again, which it did a pretty good job of pushing my shadows. Do I have to resharpen you? I was hoping I'd get away without sharpening you again. But now I'm going to go right into that darkest edge with the mulberry and push it just a little bit more. I've got to resharpen you. Okay, just a minute. Get off my hand. Thank you. Did I sharpen you too much? Okay, here we go. Yes, I talk to my pencils. There we go. Just trying to get a bit of a crisp edge in some of these darker areas. Yeah. And that's going to help because we have some overlapping going on here with these branches. So some crisp edges can help clarify where the branches are going. Where they're overlapping. All that good stuff. Especially the ones that are coming into this circle area, so they're going to be over the rabbit a bit. This one's going behind the ribbon. So there's a lot of interaction, actually, that I have going on in the composition with all the other elements of the drawing. So it helps to have them clearly defined. Where'd the mulberry go? There. And I'm gonna sharpen again. Just a minute. Try to not sharpen too much this time. Maybe I won't break my pencil. Blending a little bit more. And again, minimal space, so, you know, minimal, limited amount of room for color. So when I'm blending, I have to keep that in mind. I don't want to take over the limited space with just one color. I actually use those extra lines I drew in there for getting a bit of texture. Because it's a tree branch, so wood, it's not naturally perfectly smooth. There's texture in it. And instead of going with that middle tone again, I mean, I've already got it there. Again, limited space. I'm going to go back in with my cream. And make sure some of the highlighted areas really pop out. Reinforce a bit some of these texture lines that I've built up. There we go. So there we go. So far I've got mulberry in every part of this wreath, which is fantastic. I am so excited I was able to get those all integrated together. Might go back, make part of the branches a little bit darker, but for now, I think I'm set. We'll continue the next time, and I'll keep putting mulberry, this color right here, in every part of this, see how it goes. But thank you so much for joining me in the studio. I'll see you next time. Bye.